Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for attending this meeting of the Planning Committee, Thursday the 12th of January 2023. Happy New Year to you all. I don't really mean it, but there you go. I'm Councillor Caleb Tomlinson and I'm the chair of this committee. Committee members and members of the public are reminded that this meeting is being streamed live to YouTube. If you're attending the meeting because you're a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of 4 minutes. You will be timed and I will confirm when 4 minutes runs out and you should then wind up. Please come forward to the microphone, or if you're dialing in via Teams, unmute your mic when I invite you to speak. Voting will be undertaken using the electronic system. The outcome of the vote will then be confirmed by our legal officer, Taz, once complete. I'll begin with some housekeeping. Please can you ensure your mobile phones are on silent or switched off. We're not anticipating a fire alarm. If the alarm does go off, we use the fire exits to the rear and meet on the grassy area and West Paddock. Okay, if I can now ask everyone to introduce themselves, we'll start with the young lady to my left.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tasneem Safdar. I'm the Legal Services Team Leader and we'll be assisting the committee tonight.
Hi, Ben Story, Democratic Services Officer.
Good evening, I'm Caroline Moon, Councillor for Buckshaw and Worden.
Good evening, Councillor Hunter, Bamber Bridge East.
Gareth Watson, Count Green, Gregson Lane.
Chris Lomax, Councillor Wantleydale East.
Councillor Phil Smith, representing New Longton, Hutton East.
Good evening, Councillor Harry Hancock, representing Broadoak Ward, Penwortham.
Good evening, Councillor Barry Yates, representing Samlesbury and Waltons.
Good evening, Councillor Colin Sharvels, Earnshaw Bridge, and I'm standing in this evening for Councillor Will Adams.
Good evening and a happy new year to everyone. Councillor John Hesketh, I represent Longton and Hutton West.
Good evening everyone, Councillor James Flannery from Middlefirth Penwortham.
Councillor Damien Bretherton, Walton Liddell West, standing in for Councillor Mary Green.
Good evening, Emma Shepherd, Planning Consultant.
Good evening, Debbie Roberts, Development Management Team Leader.
Good evening, Stephen Brown, Planning Manager.
John Harrison, Interim Director of Planning and Development.
Okay, thanks everyone. Do we have any declarations of interest this evening? No. Okay, I have read and agree with the minutes from the 8th of December. Could I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Hesketh. I'm quite happy to sign those off as long as we are all... Is anybody against the minutes? Are you happy to take that? We don't need to go electronically do it as no. Okay, I'll sign those. Appeal decisions, please, Stephen.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, we have two appeal decisions to report this evening. The first relates to Royalty Avenue, New Longton. This was an appeal against the refusal of permission in principle application for up to 2 dwellings. The plot lies opposite a house located behind 77 Royalty Lane and is within the green belt. The inspector referenced limited infilling as being acceptable in his decision, and he also considered that the houses would appear as part and parcel of a continuous village area with no perception of separation or intervening open ground between. He therefore concluded it would not be inappropriate development in the green belt and there would be no undue impact on openness, and therefore he granted planning permission. The second one relates to the Windmill Hotel, Preston New Road, Mellonbrook. This appeal related to the application for the convenience store and petrol filling station, which was refused by yourselves as recently as December last year, and the hearing was on the 13th of December before Christmas. Councillors Yates and Watson attended the hearing to present the views of the Planning Committee on the day. The inspector wasn't averse to the design or configuration of the scheme, but he did conclude that the proposed activities on site, including vehicles, headlights, deliveries, patron noise, would lead to material harm to the amenities of living conditions of nearby residential properties, and he therefore dismissed the appeal. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Okay, good news. Good news. Right, let's move on to item number 6. Number 4, Parklands Close, Penwortham. This was the application that was deferred in July. Emma, please, would you present this item?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, just bear with me, a little bit of a technical issue. As councillors may recall, like Chair's just said, this application was presented before committee at the end of July, where it was deferred to allow for discussions with the agent to seek amendments to the scheme. A meeting took place with the agent back in August of last year with a set of amended plans received in October. Re-notification was carried out and one neighbour objection was received. As can be seen from the site location plan here, the house lies to the southwest of Parklands Close itself, small residential cul-de-sac in the settlement of Penwortham. The layout is unique and historic, with the front elevation of the application property actually in line with the rear elevation of number 2, as can be seen demonstrated on the block plans here. The amended scheme sees significant change to the design, with a drop in ridge height and a change in the roof form from what was a gable end side elevation to a hip roof. The siting renders it well concealed from the street scene, ensuring no adverse impact. It is advised that the application of the 45-degree code should not be applied slavishly, given its unique layout. There is a staggered relationship and built form that isn't in strict compliance currently. Therefore, with the incorporation of the design changes, the proposal is not considered to exacerbate the existing situation to the degree of there being substantial harm to warrant refusal. I also just would like to make you aware and draw the councillors' attention to the update sheet. A late representation was made since the publication of the Planning Committee agenda. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Emma. We don't have any registered speakers on this application. We don't have any of the ward members. We don't have the applicants either with us, so I'm just going to open it straight up to committee. Councillor Flannery.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Emma, for your report. I would just like to say well done for everyone involved in this, because we were all faced some months ago with seeing what was a very difficult situation at the committee. And it's great to see that the officers have worked with the applicants and the consultants and all involved. So I want to propose approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Lomax.
I would just second that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Lomax. Anyone else wanting to speak on this? Any other proposals apart from approval? Do we need to go to the electronic on this, Taz? Yeah, we have to go to the electronic vote. So this is for approval, proposed by Councillor Flannery, seconded by Councillor Lomax.
Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant planning permission in respect of 4 Parklands Close for a part single, part 2-storey side rear extension. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, Taz. Moving swiftly on to item 7, Bridgend, Church Lane, Whitestake. Debbie, to present this item, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Bridgend site is an L-shaped tract of land to the northeast and northwest of Bridgend, Church Lane in Farrington. It's a dwelling with stable and tennis court. The application is an outline 1 for 7 dwellings. All matters other than access are reserved. Indicative drawings show access from Church Lane on the western side, 3 detached properties on the northwest and 4 on the northeastern side behind Bridgend itself, which will be retained. Drawings are indicative, so they're subject to change, and the matters of layout, scale, landscape and design will be considered later if this is approved at reserved matters stage. So just a few photographs. This is the northeast section where the 4 dwellings will be. The existing dwellings on the right-hand side, and the stable and tennis court will be removed. This is the northwest side where the existing and proposed access would be, and there'll be 3 dwellings on this section. And the connecting section, it is an L shape, so this connects the 2. Indicative plans, as I say, show this section mostly undeveloped, but it does include a spur to the estate road. So it is possible that the applicant wishes to have access into the land beyond, but as it's outlined, the layout can't be considered at this point. And this is the access point onto Church Lane. It's facing eastwards. We've got the western side of the access, which rises towards a railway bridge. It's a Google photo, I do apologise, but it's better than the one I took. And you can see the access at this point. Church Lane is sporadically placed dwellings, fairly wide plots with fairly big gardens. Okay, an extract from the local plan policy map. Site is within an area of safeguarded land. Policy G3, which governs safeguarded land, aims to keep land in its existing use for the life of the plan, and it aims to keep it free from physical new development unless we haven't got a 5-year supply. The blue bit is roughly the site area, so it's to the centre of a very wide tract, as you can see, S3, S4 and S2. Oh, sorry. The applicant suggests that as the site is already in residential use, the addition of extra residential properties would keep the site in the existing use, which is the wording of the policy. But in reality, it won't remain in the existing use. At the moment, it's 1 dwelling in a large site, and it would end up with potentially, at reserved matters, 8 dwellings in 1 residential curtilage. It won't remain free from new development, and it isn't needed to supplement our 5-year supply. We've got sufficient for a 5-year housing supply. It's also got the potential to prejudice long-term development of this safeguarded land as a whole. And whilst we could argue that once all these safeguarded sites are developed, this would be a decent scheme in situ, at the moment, it's out of context. It will be 7 dwellings in place of 1 large domestic property. On balance, we consider it contrary to policy 3 of the local plan, and we would vote for, we'd recommend refusal. Now, this has been tested at appeal on a couple of other different patches of land within the same site, and both appeals have been dismissed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Debbie. Right, we have Councillor Michael Green wishing to speak on this application. Councillor Green, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just been to the dentist, so I can't speak very well, so I'm going to keep my comments really brief, actually. Having read the report and listened to the presentation now, I totally agree with the officer recommendations for refusal. I don't think it's appropriate in the way that this is coming forward, and would support the recommendation for refusal, and would urge members of the planning committee to support that recommendation. Thank you very much for your time, Chairman, and for allowing me to speak.
You're welcome, Councillor Green. I hope you're not in too much pain.
Well, only a little. Thank you.
Was it NHS? Was it an NHS dentist, Councillor Green? It was. Could you tell me where to find one? Okay, we have Councillor Karen Walton to present on the item. Just before you do, Councillor Walton. Yes. Can I mean, I've been scratching my head. Can I ask you why you called it in?
I think it was because, with hindsight, I think that this application might come again, and I just wanted it to come to committee now.
Okay, that's good enough. Okay, yeah, you have 4 minutes, Councillor Walton.
Thank you. So good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight in support of the excellent planning report that Debbie has made, and for the officer recommendation for refusal for this outline application. As been said, there has been a long history of applications for this site. Planning permission in principle for up to 9 self-built dwellings was refused for this site in April 2020. Now we have an application for 7 dwellings, but the indicative drawings show the access to the site from Church Lane with an estate road in a southeasterly direction to provide 4 additional dwellings. But at the point of turning, a separate spare is shown, which implies that future development on this land could have an application for planning permission to increase the number of dwellings for this site if planning permission was granted for the initial 7 dwellings. This land forms part of the South Ribble Local Plan S3 safeguarded land, so by nature, scale and degree of permanency, this development will be contrary to policy G3 of the current local plan, as the development would harm the ability of the council to manage comprehensive development of the whole area, as the scheme would not amount to a substantial form of development. Also, that the council can demonstrate a 5-year housing supply of land without the development taking place. Local residents and the council campaigned hard for the refusal for the building of 100 dwellings on the same safeguarded land S3 access from Chain House Lane. This planning application was refused in June 2019 and dismissed on appeal in December 2019. This shows how important this area of S3 safeguarding land is to the South Ribble Local Plan, with the inspector's comments confirming that development on this site would be contrary to policy G3 of the South Ribble Local Plan in terms of its requirement to ensure existing use remained undisturbed during the plan period and potential long-term comprehensive development of the safeguarded land. The council again can demonstrate a 5-year supply of deliverable housing land, and as such no permission on the separate section of the site S3 has been granted and no precedent set for any piecemeal development. If planning permission was granted for this development, it would set a precedent for further development of this safeguarded site. The proposal also is not policy compliant with the National Policy Framework 2021. The only access to the site would be from the narrow rural road of Church Lane, used by motorists to avoid the hold-ups on the A582 as a shortcut. There's a narrow elevated railway bridge to the right of the access and a considerable bend on the road to the left, Whitfire's wood processing plant, to which large HGV wagons access with large amounts of wood on a regular basis, are opposite. The entrance to the Farrington Lodges is accessed by residents and dog walkers and families is opposite. There is no pavement on the opposite side of the road due to the width constraints of the road. LCC Highways had initial concerns about the sight lines from the access, but the applicant has revised the plans by extending the pavement to 2 metres. But how can this be achieved without removing the existing high hedges, because the road width doesn't allow it? This area has also been identified on the LCC's map zone system as susceptible to surface and groundwater flooding and sits within a flood watch zone. This has been clearly visible recently after all the rain we've experienced during the past few days. The development would also be out of character with the rest of the houses along Church Lane and look completely out of place in such a long established residential area. I hope the committee will support the recommendations for refusal for this planning permission. Thank you for listening.
Very well done. 3 minutes, 59 seconds. Thanks for your presentation, Councillor Walton. Right, we have the agent, Josh Hellowell, who's with us on Teams. Good evening, Josh Hellowell. If you'd like to make your presentation, you have 4 minutes, just like everyone else, okay?
Thank you. Chair, members of the Planning Committee, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of yourselves today. I speak to you as the agent, working on behalf of the applicant, and just wanted to take this opportunity to present some final words of support. The reasons for refusal solely relate to the site's location within safeguarded land, and the report suggests the proposal conflicts with the relevant policy G3, on the basis development would harm the ability of the council to manage the comprehensive development of the area, and that the council has a sound supply of housing. With regard to the latter, the housing target adopted by the council doesn't represent a ceiling for development. Simply because you're able to meet the minimum provisions stipulated under the standard methodology for calculating supply does not mean that proposals for additional development should be resisted. On the contrary, it is a fact that central government is reliant on local authorities delivering housing above required levels if we are to meet our national housing target. Every proposed development site should be considered on its own merits and not dismissed on the basis that the council has a positive land supply position. On this basis, the pertinent consideration is the proposal's adherence or conflict with policy G3, given this policy relates to the land's allocation of safeguarded land. Within section 8.1.2 of the officer's report, the officer quotes the aforementioned policy, namely the sections which state that such land will remain free in its existing use for the foreseeable future and will be kept free of new physical development and be kept open during the plan period until its review. Now, the important thing to bear in mind is that the vast majority of the allocation covers agricultural land, which is often the case when earmarking areas for immediate or future development. And ultimately, it is this vast portion of the allocation which is being safeguarded for the future. And it is these areas which have been previously subject to applications and appeals, as mentioned by the officer. However, this proposal sits within the curtilage of an existing residential unit, makes it different to the 9 dwelling schemes mentioned by the council previously, which included some of the agricultural land. And that has ramifications in relation to the aforementioned policy. Firstly, in developing the curtilage associated with the existing dwelling, the proposal would not be changing the existing use class of the land, as from a use class perspective, the curtilage falls within a C3 dwelling house use. So by the wording of the policy, we are not in conflict with this provision. Secondly, the desire to keep land free from physical development is, of course, to ensure the land is free at the point which the council view it necessary to bring forward development. However, as discussed with the officer, it is unlikely that the existing dwellings would form part of any master plan. Clearly, the most likely outcome is that the open agricultural fields which are developed and not the existing houses which would likely remain in situ. There is no obligation from any local property to form part of a scheme which covers all the safeguarded allocation. For clarity, within the S3 safeguarding allocation alone, there are another 18 properties. Clearly, it was not the intention of the council when making the allocation to displace what is not an insignificant number of existing homes. The suggestion that the development would compromise the long-term plan for the allocation is not being justified in the officer's report. The site is curtilage to an existing home. Its development will no more inhibit the development of the wider allocation than it does presently. The site does not act as a gateway to the wider site, and it would not introduce new land uses. Equally, despite the suggestion in the report, in the context of the National Planning Policy Framework, the scheme is small scale and does not represent major development. Moreover, in the context of the allocation, the site is 0.48 hectares, whereas the allocation is approximately 30 hectares, which combined with the adjoining S2 increases to 50 hectares approximately, meaning the application site represents less than 1% of the allocations. In short, the scheme would not introduce new land uses, rather maintain the current use, and the development of the site would not inhibit the development of the wider allocation, given it relates solely to an existing dwelling for which there are no plans to demolish or otherwise alter. On this basis, it is not sought that the reasons for refusal have been sufficiently substantiated and that plan permission should be granted. Again, I would like to thank you all for your time this evening and for the opportunity to speak. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Josh. Right, that's everybody who wishes to speak on this item. I will now open it to committee. Councillor Barry Yates.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've read the report, had a look at the piece of land. It is safeguarded land, you know, and it's about time these builders had a look round and looked at our local plan, where we say loud and clear that we have a good housing supply. Safeguarded land is safeguarded land, just same as Greenbelt, and I'm glad that it was fetched into committee. In my opinion, I think all safeguarded land and Greenbelt should be dealt with the committee and not be delegated, but that's just my opinion, and maybe the officers could take that away and have a look at it maybe to future date. So saying that, the report is excellent, everything's in it, and I go along with the officer's recommendation for refusal, and I'd like to approve refusal, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. Councillor Flannery, did you want to come in? No? Oh, sorry. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I absolutely agree with everything that Debbie said. I don't see how this can be justified, so I'm quite happy to second refusal.
Anyone else? Councillor Hesketh.
I'd just like to say an easy way to put it, that it's not the policy of South Ribble, the local plan, and it's as simple as that. It doesn't apply. It doesn't apply to it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Right. So the proposal is for refusal from Councillor Yates. It's been seconded by Councillor Watson. Do we have any other proposals? No? Okay, so this is for refusal. Can we go to the electronic vote, please?
Thank you.
Okay, Taz, now we've finally got there. Can we have the outcome of that vote, please?
Thank you, Chair. So committee has decided to refuse planning permission for the erection of 7 dwellings at Bridgend, Church Lane, for the reasons outlined in the committee report. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much for that. So that's refused. Moving swiftly on to item number 8, land east of Penwortham Priory, Crowshill Road, Penwortham, and Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. I will. The application's been brought to committee because it's a council proposal. It refers to Penwortham Leisure Centre, which is located to the south of Penwortham Priory Technology College. There are residential properties to the east and north on Crowhills Road and Medway, but they are all separated by playing fields. St Teresa's Primary School south east of the site. The application site is the red box in the middle, and it proposes installation of 1 air handling unit and 2 air source heat pumps, which will be surrounded by a 3-metre security fence. This is the air source heat, well, I beg your pardon, this is the attenuator enclosure. The heat pumps will be inside, and they will be surrounded by this fence in this location. Okay, that just details the extent of the enclosure. With no consultee objections, subject to relevant conditions and we've not had any neighbour representation. The pumps themselves won't be visible from any point outside the site, and we would recommend approval with conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for your report, Debbie. No registered speakers, no ward members, and the applicant is us. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks again, Chair. Another good report. Well presented, Debbie. It's policy compliant, and I would propose that we approve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Flannery. Councillor Yates.
Second, Chair.
Do we have any other proposals? Councillor Smith.
Not a proposal, Chair, just speaking for the application. I think we'll be seeing more and more of these coming through on a regular basis, I think. And if we didn't pass it and it didn't get built, we'd be sending a lot of money back to the government, to be quite honest. So it seems a very good reason for voting for it and spend it in South Ribble. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Smith. I thoroughly agree with you. Send less money back to the central government. Right, okay, no more proposals. Let's go to the electronic vote on this one. So this is for approval. Okay, the system's just been reset, so we're going to have to do it again. We could have had a show of hands, but... Could I suggest we have a good old-fashioned show of hands for approval? Okay, Taz, how's that gone?
Thank you, Chair. So committee have unanimously granted planning permission with conditions for the installation of an air handling unit and 2 air source heat pumps, together with the erection of a 3-metre fence at land to the east of Penwortham Priory Technology College.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, item number 9 this evening, land north of Preston New Road at Samlesbury. Stephen is presenting this one because our newcomer has only been taking part in half of it, haven't you? So Stephen's going to present this item for us tonight.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this site is a 0.6 of a hectare, rather overgrown area of land separated from Preston New Road by a hedgerow. To the west is linear development along Preston New Road, as I'm indicating now with my arrow, which runs from the Bukhara restaurant, residential, all the way along. And then we have Huntley Lane coming around the side and rear of the site. Then to the east, we have Woodland, Samlesbury Hall with residential properties set within the grounds. So I'll come back to this specific site in a minute, but that's the Huntley Lane access down the side of the site. That's just a limited shot within the site. So the frontage is this hedgerow that you see in front of you going east from Huntley Lane. And again, that's just looking, the site is beyond that hedgerow. So going back to the proposal, it's for a permission in principle, which is a 2-stage process for up to 6 bungalows. The first stage, we can consider whether the site is suitable in principle, when we can consider location, land use and amount of development. If that is successful, it's followed by a second stage, which covers the full technical detail of the proposal. So just going back to the site, the proposal has been promoted as limited infill in a village. If, as members, you agree with this, then it would be classed as appropriate development. In making the judgment whether it's limited infilling in villages, we're not offered any guidance in national guidance as to what is limited or what is a village. It's evident that recent appeal inspectors have taken a more relaxed interpretation on both counts. However, it's clear throughout that each one must be decided on its merits. It's officers' view that given the physical layout of the road, where it's a continuous road frontage of development, and that the road to the front creates a clear boundary with the woodland and residential to the side and rear, we feel that this does constitute on balance limited infill, and on that basis it's recommended for approval, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Stephen. I don't have any registered speakers on this one. I don't have any ward members wanted to speak on it, but I do have the agent, Mr. Andrew Coney, joining us on Teams. Mr. Coney, if you'd like to make your presentation to us, you have 4 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I would wholly endorse your officer's report and recommendation in respect of this planning application in principle. I note from the officer's report a number of objections to the proposal, namely that it goes against Greenbelt policy. Well, your planning officer has advised you as to the matters pertaining to that, and I was interested to hear on an earlier item on this agenda that another appeal decision has been granted for on the principles of limited infill, and whilst I acknowledge every site is different, there have been a number of those decisions in this borough. The second is that the design is of poor quality. Well, this is a planning permission in principle, so design and other matters will come later, again, as advised by your officer. There is an argument about a loss of privacy. As you will have seen for the photographs in the site is naturally bounded to Huntley Lane and to the rear by existing vegetation, and I don't accept the argument of a loss of privacy. A loss of habitat, I think, is again unproven. The hedgerow at the frontage can substantially remain if that's determined at reserve matters or detailed stage, and the woodland to the rear, which are the main areas of habitat around the site, would be completely undisturbed. The land is not designated in the local plan, and I would accept that, except its greenbelt status. But for the reasons your officer has advised, there is a reason for a granting planning permission here, and that is the limited infill argument supported by a number of appeal decisions. In short, members, I would, as I said at the beginning, endorse your officer's recommendation. I think the impact of the development of this area of land will be de minimis. It will be a continuation of the linear development in the area and will be of no material impact on the greenbelt whatsoever. And I would ask that the application receives consent. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks for your presentation, Mr. Cornick. Councillor Yates.
Right, thank you, Chair. I'm sure you're going to ask me why I asked for this application to be fetched into committee. Well, the simple answer to that is because it's in Greenbelt, and it is our policy that anything in Greenbelt should come to committee. So, in saying that, maybe the officers could look at it, and instead of going to spreading the time out between officers and members, all applications of this sort should come straight to committee. That's just my opinion. If you could check that out, I think I am right, but if I have been known to be wrong.
Can you shine some light on that or not?
Not yet. I'm sure she will. This application is in Greenbelt, Chair. I've been over to have a look at it, see exactly where it were, because it is in my ward. I agree with the officer's recommendation because it is infill, and that's part of our policy for South Ribble local plan. So in saying that, I'd like to move approval, Chair.
Have you found anything yet, Taz?
Still looking.
Still looking. Okay, thanks, Councillor Yates. Councillor Hesketh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On reading the report, I did have reservations as far as it being green belt and so forth. But on viewing the site, it isn't the best of agricultural land, as I see it. It's not top quality or anything like that, although I'm not saying that there's anything wrong as far as putting houses on it and that. It is an enclosed section. I don't think it would be the best of land to work as far as agriculture is concerned. And providing that the trees at the front are kept as they are, or there is a barrier there, I think on the circumstances, Mr. Chairman, I would go along with approval. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Hesketh. Councillor Moon, then Councillor Smith.
Thanks, Chair. I'm happy to support this application. I just wanted to cheekily take the opportunity while we've got the agent to say we really like hedgerows and we really like woodlands, and we're okay with infill, but we'd like it done really nicely and sensitively. So the next application, it'd be really nice to see nice quality matching in with the landscape with a lovely hedgerow and a woodland at the back. Thank you very much.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Moon. I'd just like to fetch Taz in just for one moment.
Thank you, Chair. I've just checked the terms of reference and the actual functions aspect in the planning committee in the constitution. There is actually nothing in the that document which stipulates that items in respect of Greenbelt have to come to committee.
Okay. Did you hear that, Councillor Yates? Did you hear that? Yeah, have a word with her after, because she's just overruled you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. In principle, I will be against this, but I'm not allowed to be against it in principle. We all know, and the officers know, exactly what's happened with these planning in principle. The PIPs are the pain of our life, to be quite honest. They've absolutely ruined certainly a road in my ward where it's taken up every little bit of space that was farmland, that was open agricultural land, and it was just green. And it was just nice. And now it's not green, and now it's not nice, and there's some very nice houses built down there, but it's ruined exactly what it was, which was a country lane. So I would have an extremely difficulty in actually voting for this at all, to be quite honest. I understand what the officers say, and I know their arms is stuck so far up the back they don't have virtually an option with it, but I think I do, so I could probably just vote against it anyway. I really don't like these applications, I have to say. It is in Greenbelt, and I accept the arguments being made, but these planning in principles, just wait and see what comes next. Another one next door to that, another one next door to that, and you just go along with these linear developments, and it changes the shape and the outlook on the roads and the neighbourhoods totally. The one that was passed by the planning inspector is not in the village; it's outside of the village. So they've even got that one wrong, to be quite honest. And we know sometimes what we think of planning inspectors on this committee. So I'll just wait and see if anybody else has got anything to add to that, Chair. But I think I would have a problem voting for it. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, would you not like to propose an amendment for refusal?
In that case, I will propose an amendment for refusal, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. What I really enjoy about this planning committee is that every time I read the report and then come to it, I'm always influenced by the contributions of colleagues around the table. Now, a couple of firsts here tonight. Never ever have I seen Barry Yates, Councillor Yates, back anything in the Greenbelt. So that's a new one on me, Barry. Barry is also the ward councillor, which I respect, and I always try and support the ward councillors because they know more than me in their own ward. To the agent, just to let you know, you come here again, any development, been in the business for 30 years, affects the local environment, the habitat, etc. So anything like that, and as Councillor Moons just said, we do like our green spaces here. The reality is what Councillor Smith said, this infill thing is designated, this designation of infill has caused us as South Ribble quite a lot of problems, and I'm familiar with the road which Councillor Smith's referred to, and it is effectively, it's a building site. The whole road, because we lost an appeal on infill, has ended up as a building site. So one thing it has got going for it is its bungalows, which are much needed, which I appreciate. But I'm going to second Councillor Smith's refusal on this, because I'm uncomfortable about some aspects of this. And in terms of consistency, if we're going to protect the Greenbelt, then we're going to protect it. And I know we've got a challenge with the infill agenda. I know the officers do the best and they have to comply. But in this instance, I'm going to agree with Councillor Smith. Second, thank you.
Councillor Flannery, I presume the policy reason for your seconding the amendment is G3, Greenbelt?
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Yates?
Yeah, Councillor Flannery is quite right. With Greenbelt, it's usually me that's standing up on the table shouting bowies and forwards. But the legislation, and I do know that my residents will be watching this tonight, is that it is policy compliant. There's no way whatsoever in planning policy, and if there were, I'd have found it, that can say refuse this, because there is nothing there. You know, Chair, what I'm like for Greenbelt, and
I certainly
everybody else does. But if we don't allow this, we're going against our own policies.
Right. Okay. Anybody else wanting to speak on this item? No, right. So we had proposal for approval from Councillor Yates, seconded by Councillor Hesketh. But then we had an amendment for refusal proposed by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Flannery. So we'll vote on the amendment for refusal first. We're going to do this electronically, but Taz wants to reprimand me for some reason.
Sorry, no, just to double check in respect of the reasons for refusal. So I know there was some mention about G3, but I think just reading the report, I'm presuming it's non-compliant in respect of policy G1 in terms of defining inappropriate development, including construction of new buildings as harmful to the green belt, which should not be approved except in very special circumstances. So I think that's probably the reason why I think Councillor Smith proposed refusal. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Taz. That's correct. And I would certainly question whether it's in the village environment.
Are you happy with that, Taz? Now can we go to so we're voting on the amendment for refusal proposed by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Flannery. Councillor Yates, you need to vote on this. Councillor Smith, this is we're voting for the amendment, which is for refusal. Okay, Taz, can you?
Right. So that motion hasn't been carried. So we will now have vote on approval. Thank you, Chair. So members have decided to grant permission in principle for the erection of up to 6 bungalows at land north side of Preston Road, Salisbury.
Okay, that's the end of this evening's meeting. Thank you all for attending. I'd have some very quiet evenings between now and February if I were you, ladies and gentlemen, because it's going to be a long one. All right. With that, I wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.